gentlemen, our first In the Zone episode on the road, and boy did we knock it out of the park today, folks. We are live from the South End Community Center in Springfield, and with our very, very special guest, Mr. Will Dawkins, General Manager of the Washington Wizards. We are super, super pumped to share this moment with Mr. Dawkins, and also just to really reflect on what an amazing, amazing event this has been today. So welcome to In the Zone, Will.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me.
Really great pleasure.
Long time coming.
And this is a long time coming, but people, just as background, I know I'm going to age myself right here, but I did recruit Mr. Dawkins, and unfortunately him and Mr. Ochoa, I think, might have been the best high school backcourt that I've seen here in my times in 28 years. A really, really good combination, and that's why we wanted them both. But I wanted to start off our first question with the event today, you know, because you've become the general manager of the Washington Wizards, but still took time out of your schedule to give back to the community where you grew up. Let's talk about that first.
Yeah, so thanks again for having me on. I think it's important, my wife and I, when we started this foundation, so we wanted to make sure we gave back to the cities and the people that mattered to us. Growing up in Springfield, Massachusetts, it was a village mentality back then. I was growing up playing at the Dunbar, playing at the Family Center, Carew Street Boys Club, MLK Center, like all those places. So to be able to partner with the South End Community Center and do an event where it's not just basketball, but life skills and healthy habits and things of that nature, it was a no-brainer to start it off in Shrine Weekend here back in Springfield.
That's awesome. Wes Jackson is the director of the South End Community Center. He's also my associate basketball coach, so this is like home to us. But Will, you were an outstanding basketball player in high school.
Not bad.
And now tell us some of the lessons that you learned playing in Springfield, but also in high school at Commerce, and some of the lessons that you took from there.
Yeah, I think back when I was playing, it was very competitive high school basketball. And being able to go to the High School of Commerce and play with the seniors and juniors when I was a freshman, I learned so much about them, just on how to play, how to compete, and what really goes into training. And that's why I wanted to make sure when we came back, we have people that are working that I played with, played against, here helping out the camp, but also coaches from the NBA showing up to just kind of use their expertise. So I've been fortunate enough that basketball has been able to provide a lifestyle for me and my family, and I wanted to make sure I could come back and show everybody that you just don't have to play in the NBA. There's other ways to work.
That's awesome. We took some clips of the event as well, the clinic, and it was great to see the coaches out there with the players. This is what gets me excited during the year and everything. We know basketball's right around the corner.
Yes.
So let's talk about Emerson, because I think that was life-changing a little bit for you. And I want you to give me a part B on Coach Hank Smith, because that's my guy. I love me some Hank Smith.
Emerson College, you know, fate has it. Like, you never know where you're going to end up or if you're going to use your degree. I probably told Emerson College no a few times as well early on, but then it was the perfect decision for me. Hank Smith was one of those guys that coached you hard but really knew basketball and taught me a lot about recruiting and scouting. I got to work with him as well, but more so just about resilience and persevering and growing up. And got the opportunity, because I went to Emerson College, to become an intern with the Seattle Supersonics, because he had coached someone by the name of Sam Presti, who's now general manager of Oklahoma City Thunder. He hired me as an intern, brought me in, taught me how to scout, and kept me in Oklahoma City with him for 15 years. So it was a fun ride there, but everything I learned from Springfield on to Emerson, I was able to carry with me when I got the job to be the general manager with the Wizards.
That's amazing, absolutely amazing. Will was very kind there when he glossed over the name Sam Presti, because Sam Presti is the guy that is running the NBA right now.
Yes,
Sam Presti's got it figured out on a different kind of level, and really, really amazing. When did you first realize that you wanted to pursue a career in the NBA?
Yeah, I learned pretty early that I wasn't good enough to play. I always wanted to get in the NBA somehow, but didn't really know. Now there's so many avenues with AI, with analytics, with physical therapy, sports training. There's just so many methods. But for me, I knew I loved basketball. I didn't know if I wanted to coach. I kind of started on the coaching side and then switched to the front office. But knowing that there's capabilities to stay within sports is something I really didn't know at the same age as the kids we're talking with today. So it was good to get back to the youth and explain that.
That's amazing. That just shows some of the sage wisdom that Will has to get out of coaching and get into that front office, because that coaching stuff can be a little rough and tumble a little bit. Describe your role with the Wizards as general manager. What's it like?
Day to day, it's evolving. I'll say that. I got there 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. Was hired by Michael Winger, who's our president of Monumental Basketball. And my job responsibility is to oversee the Washington Wizards and the Capital City Go-Go, which is our G League team. So anything you can think of, from staffing, coaches, scouts, evaluation, medical, the day-to-day, drafting the players, trades, free agency, just making sure that the team is strong. I've been very fortunate enough to be back on the East Coast and have strong ownership that believes in what we're trying to do. We're trying to rebuild the team and grow the fan base with a lot of young players that they can get behind. So spent a lot of time trying to refresh and build flexibility for the roster and go into the season with a lot of fresh faces and opportunity ahead.
I love what you've done with the roster, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Why did you choose South End Community Center? It's such a tremendous asset to the community, but what arrived at the decision to jump in here?
Yeah, I think the South End Community Center is doing really good work, not just for the youth, but also starting adult leagues and getting people still playing. I obviously have a relationship with Eric Newkirk, who's a dear friend. It kind of helps do a lot down here. But when you thought of Enshrinement Weekend, staying at the MGM, what used to be the old South End Community Center, I think it just made sense to kind of have that tie between them both. And they did a great job finding the space for us, getting the food trucks outside, space for my wife to teach the fitness classes and the multi-purpose room over there. So it's a great facility. We want to make sure we support it and give back to the kids in the South End who probably needed it more.
It's so important, and we thank you for that. I think Trey Johnson was unbelievable at number 5. We do our own draft in the zone. 2 years we've done our own draft, maybe 3 now. Talk about Trey Johnson a little bit. I think he might be, one of the real tremendous assets in this draft.
Before I talk about him as a player, I'll just say the person. He's a wizard type person because he works. He's a good teammate, and he cares about basketball. He's just passionate, the joy. We can see him already coming in the morning, working out, and also coming back at night. So that culture of guys working, competing, he has that in him, and he's going to get that out of his teammates as well. But he's just a talented offensive player. He can score it, he can put it on the deck, he can find guys, and defensively, it probably wasn't what he was asked to do the most at Texas last year, but he's already proven in Summer League and through the stuff we've been doing in the gym that that's a two-way basketball player that we drafted, and he's got the confidence to keep working, and we're excited for where he's at, but more so where we know he's going to end up at.
I think shooting's the name of the game right now, and his shooting ability is just unbelievable. Really, really terrific.
One of the best pure shooters in the draft, for sure.
Without question. And Maxime Reynard, another great shooter in there. There weren't a ton of great shooters in this draft, but I think Trey Johnson's going to be a great NBA player.
We hope so.
I love Koulibaly. Let's talk about that young movement.
So the French movement we have going on in D.C., we're able to draft Bilal 2 years ago, Alex Assar the year after. I just got back from Paris visiting those guys that are playing for their national team. Those two guys think defense first, which, as you know, in the NBA, you got to be able to defend and you got to be able to keep your man in front of you. So those guys, blocks, steals, deflections, they're tops of their position. But more importantly, the offensive end, they both can really pass. So we want to build a team that's dynamic, that can score, but also make plays for others. And both those guys can rebound, bring it up, and find guys. So we're trying to find multi-talented, versatile players.
That's great. It's just so important as you're trying to put together your own stamp on the team, that you find players that do fit into Wizard culture and what you're trying to establish. I think that might be the first, most foremost thing that you're trying to establish as a general manager is to bring that code that people talk about heat culture all the time and some of those things. And it's intimately important to a successful NBA team.
Yeah,
I wanted to just talk about, so we give a shout out to some people here also, is the Springfield basketball family.
Yes.
Because it is a family.
Very much.
It's a binding, basketball is one of the binding forces of this community. The Hall of Fame is here, and that's very special as well. But Springfield community is a basketball family. And I wanted to give Will a chance as his last question to talk about that just a minute.
I was inspired by the Lou Rose when you watched UMass, the Marcus Camby's. I wanted to get to that level. But before I got to that, it was the Edgar Padillas, it was the Travis Best, all the guys that you would watch, Derek Kellogg, those guys way before the Sean Neals that were kind of touchable, but there were so many players, Kamari Williams that you would play in front of, Jamal. It's just it was a city where everyone competed and got after it. And they taught me how to play. But then you get to play with the Yusuf Abdul Ali, the Pat Ochoas. That class was just so loaded that we built upon each other. And when I come back now, those are the same guys that I lean on, that kind of help and support. So the family is the family. We stay in touch no matter what we're doing. The good old days was rolling out the ball, going to Hubbard and figuring out and just competing. And I try to want to make sure that we're giving back skills and bringing people back together. But Springfield's everything to me. Obviously, the Hall of Fame in basketball, we're never going to lose that. I get to come back for the Hoop Hall Classic that I got to play in as well, and watch some of the best players in the country in high school play that I'm now recruiting in the same gym that I got to play in. So it's a basketball city, it's a basketball family, and I'm forever grateful to be a part of that, and want to make sure that I can do whatever I can to help people here in Springfield.
That's unbelievable. The first time I was ever in Springfield, I got a call from Bobby Cremins because they had Kenny Anderson. I had Coach Kenny Anderson at Malloy, and then he went to Georgia Tech. And so Bobby Cremins calls me on the phone and he says, you got to come up with me and Kevin to Springfield, Massachusetts, because we just found the next Kenny Anderson. And the young man's name was Travis Best. I came up, it was a McDonald's All-American game.
Here.
And right here.
With the Fab Five.
And it was unbelievable. And I looked at Cremins and I looked at him and I said, he ain't Kenny, but he's pretty close.
He's an inspiration for him, Desi Jackson, that crew, man. I still remember sitting in the stands and being a ball boy watching those games.
It's great, great basketball. And again, I really thought that question closing with the Springfield family, because this is family here, and it's always been to me. I've never ever walked into South End Community Center and not seen one of my former players, and I love that. I think it's awesome. They're still playing, they're still going. And what Will is doing right now is going to mean very, very much in this city. It's going to have huge impact, and we wanted to thank him for being with us and taking time to sit down with us as well, because we've had a lot of guests on our show in the zone, but this is the number one, baby. This is as good as it gets.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it. Hopefully we can build upon this and do it many more times.
I would love it, and I want to thank our cameraman Brady for taking out time today to be with us on a Saturday. He's fabulous and wonderful.
Unbelievable interview with Will Dawkins, folks. Really, really excited to bring that to you. I wanted to thank Will Dawkins, his family, for taking the time to be with us and spend a little time in the zone. And it was just a fabulous, fabulous interview. You can see why the Washington Wizards wanted him as their general manager, and he's a young, upcoming professional who is going to do unbelievable things in the NBA. Pete, what did you think?
I thought it was a great interview. It's cool to get insights, whenever you can from people inside the industry. It's just kind of a cool thing just to hear the stuff
In
like
the
that.
Zone has been known to get a few people prom dates here, so we're going to throw one out right now. Brady LePage, unbelievable. He was our fill-in cameraman, came and helped us when Pete wasn't able to be there, and when Pete's not around, I get nervous. But I want to thank Brady for really taking the job and doing an unbelievable work. Will Dawkins was impressed with Brady. So I think that's really something special, that we did our first road game. It was our first road show, and we knocked it out. We knocked it out of the park there, I think, with Will. One of the great things about it is it's a South End Community Center, which is in the center and the heart of Springfield. We had a chance to talk about what basketball means in that Springfield community. I want to also give a shout out to Wide World Wes Jackson, who is the director of the South End Community Center, also my associate head basketball coach at Westfield State. He runs the center. Fabulous job. They do a fabulous job 365 days a year. But the clinic itself, and you'll see some clips. You saw some clips of it. We'll have some more on social media. But the clinic itself was very well attended, very, very well run. And the amount of staff they had there to help out, there were members of the Wizards staff there, there were members of the Charlotte Hornets there, so they really showed out and they really did a great job, and it just shows, what great support people have for Will Dawkins. He's a real hometown hero in that area, and it was great to see him come home, be triumphant. I mean, because our first question is, why give back? Why are you giving back to the community? You don't have to come back here. You're in Washington, D.C., the epicenter of the world right now, and for him to come back, take his time and do this, just is a very, very deep reflection on what kind of human being we're dealing with here. He's a really special person, and I really, really felt honored to have the chance to interview him. Pete and I went back and forth a little bit in there. We've had Woj, which is like huge. And then Will Dawkins as well. So I think we're going to have to sit on that one and chew to see who our number one all-time guest is right now. But it's going to be good. But I can promise you this, folks. We're going to keep working it. We're going to keep bringing you great guests. And In the Zone was really happy to sit down with Will. And we hope that you enjoyed the interview. The segment of our show right now is Pete's Corner. Pete formulates, postulates, and coagulates 3 questions for me, and boom, 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 we go. I don't get the questions beforehand, and I'm always excited to see what Pete has cooked up for me. Pete, fire away your first 3 ball.
All right, with the beginning of the NFL season, is this the time where all the deals and trades in the NBA are done because they can do them under the radar?
There's a lot of stuff that happens, the plate tectonics shift before you actually see it shift. When we brought up Woj, that was one of the really, really intriguing parts of the whole Woj time in the NBA was just the amount of information that flowed through Woj, and now I know they have Shams Charania and stuff, but I think there's a little bit of a void there. And so what you're hearing also is yes, they want to be under the covers. They want to do some of their their work away from the epicenter. They want to have an ability, to talk to people without people knowing that they're talking to people, because sometimes trades fall through and don't go right, and they don't want to know their players to know that they're being bandied about as well. So I understand the shroud. I understand the need for secrecy there. I can dig it, and especially if you tell me you're protecting your own players from scrutiny and from not being humiliated in the press when they're rumored to be traded, and that goes out. Their children read it, their family reads it, their mom and dad, their wife, everybody. It's not good, no bueno. So if they're doing it that way, I can always be in there. But yeah, this is the time of year where stuff starts to cook, because if you're not happy about your roster, or maybe you think you need that one more piece, they're going to start to try and make some moves, and they're going to try and get some stuff done right before the beginning of the season. You also see some free agency, where they'll invite a bunch of people to camp. Right now, anybody who's in Oklahoma City's camp, if you accepted the invitation to go to Oklahoma City's camp, either you're a really, really confident young man, or you don't read the newspapers, because they don't have any room on their roster. So anybody that's going into their camp has slim chance of making the team at all, unless you're, somebody that's going to come in and really take somebody else's jersey is basically what you're looking to do. It happens all the time, but it's not common. It's not common. It's a little bit rare. But I think that's cooking. And that's a good question, Pete, because the NBA is really, we're talking October 3rd. Talking October 3rd for the first preseason game. So It's right around the corner. And they got to get ready.
The thing is, with the NBA has been really trying to become what baseball and football are, is that league that's talked about year round. But yet it seems like they also need this like gap of space, this month or so, where they just kind of go radio silent.
I found that in August. I really did, and even now into September, trying to put together the show. I've been very thankful that we've had guests. When Pete told me our interview with Will Dawkins lasted 11 minutes, my response to that was yikes, because I thought we were out there for a good usual half hour that we have here. And it didn't turn that way. The interview was great, but it was a little shorter than normal. I think the environment might have got to me a little bit. We might have choked up a little bit there, maybe shortened up some of our stuff.
You know what it is? When you're on the road and you're in a weird environment like that, time seems that you think you went a lot longer than you did, and you go back. Every time I go to the Big E with somebody, I come back and I'm at least 10 minutes short on a 2-hour show.
And I wanted to give a shout out to this, but we'll take it through this door anyway. Jim LaBombard is the communications director for the Wizards, and we have interviewed on this show, been fortunate to interview on this show, 2 of their personnel. And when you're talking to NBA personnel, it's a little different. There are certain topics that are a little bit off key. There are certain topics that are off limits. And so when I'm interviewing somebody in that situation, there's, really not that avenue B question, where you're in a question and you say, okay, we talked about some Wizards players, let's talk about other players in the NBA. You can't do that, so you got to stay online. You got to stay with it, and I think that throws me off a little bit too, because like with Dr. Gindrich from St. Bonaventure, whenever I'm talking to a St. Bonaventure person, I think that's an easier interview because there's always Avenue B there. When I feel
even,
a little,
mostly college too, you could kind of talk outside of the own school. Like you've done that with other
it was
college
really,
interviews.
when you get into that, and Jim was fabulous. We sent him the questions early. We normally don't do that. We just normally, I half the time don't even write up the questions. For myself, I format out what I want to ask, but I don't necessarily write down specific questions because they're just easy to formulate in your head. You don't really need to write that down. And I always thought the more that I look down to read something when I'm having a television show or I'm talking to an audience or speaking to somebody publicly, it's very, very I think it's demeaning to your audience to keep looking down at things that somebody else might have written for you, which is what you get a lot on the political forum and on some of the sports shows.
Sure, yeah.
When you get the old teleprompter out, you got to stay on the teleprompter. That's one of the things I like about the show here is I can kind of move and groove as I like to, but I will admit that was a little constricting, and I wanted to really honor that. I didn't want to get into territories. Who wants to do an interview with one of the best interviews you ever had and then get in trouble? It's difficult to make progress that way. So I wanted to shout out to Jim because he's fabulous. But when I heard 11 minutes, I was like, oh, here we go. All right, Pete, give me question 2.
Question number 2. I'm kind of don't know where to go with this, but how do we follow the money this year in NCAA men's basketball? How do we follow the money? Okay. And is that going to determine who's on top?
What column are we talking about of money?
We're talking about the NIL money because
Okay.
I think that's really where the focus of everybody's going to be this year.
I think there'll be more reporting on it because they have to go through an auditing agency now with Deloitte. I think there'll be a little bit more, but that might only be on the ones that they kicked out, that they might have held up. I don't know what the privacy rules are around this. I don't know what all this stuff is, but, are they – I don't even know if they're contracting, Pete. Is there an actual contract that they sign?
Yeah, that's the problem. That's what I don't know. I think your average fan is confused, and I think your average fan is also going to be like, well, they're pros now.
Do you feel the confusion is by design? They don't want you to know?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the more you can bury the money, the more the blur between traditional amateurism and pro resides. You can't call them pros because, well, they're not really signing contracts. They're just getting money for their name, image, and likeness. And they're not signing contracts. So they're not really pros, but they're not amateurs either by any stretch of the imagination because they're getting paid.
Isn't it funny that nobody wants to actually say that? We say it, but the people, the people who are in charge of this, the people who are manifesting this, executing this, nobody wants to say they're pros. And they're pros. You destroyed amateurism in one fell swoop, in 1 or 2 court cases. You killed the exact core fundamental of what you were doing.
Right.
And they did it under the guise of, okay, well, we don't have to count offsets and we don't have to show all the money and nobody really knows how much. How can you operate in an environment where nobody really actually knows how much some of those guys got paid? Nobody really knows how much Cooper Flagg was making at Duke. Nobody knows that. And if he doesn't carry those same endorsements through that he happened to have when he was with Duke, he's going to be losing money in the NBA. All of these guys will be losing money in the NBA. There was talk of his deal being upwards of $20 million when he was at Duke. Then the Gatorade commercial came, or some of the other commercials came, but I don't see them anymore.
Right.
So I don't know if he's carrying. Now you're competing for sponsorship marketing with the entire NBA. And there's a pecking order there. LeBron James is at the top of that pecking order. He's the most marketable player in the game. Cooper Flagg isn't that right now. And so you can be pretty sure he might have taken a pay cut to go to the NBA, and then you would ask yourself, why? Why didn't he just stay at Duke for 4 years, accumulate all of that money, have all of those deals stay in place? What's on the other side of that tent that lured him to say, after 1 year of possibly making in the range of $15 to $20 million. After 1 year of that, now you're going to go to the NBA. What was the value of leaving? And I think that's going to be something that gets absorbed into the fabric here a little bit. I think that's something that's going to get absorbed into this whole thing of the draft is going to really hollow out. Where we do our drafting every year, what I see is that because this year alone, and I will go out on a limb, people can challenge this, but I'd say that there were somewhere between 10 and 15 NBA first-round draft picks who decided to take their name out of the draft and go back to college. Tahad Pettiford, one of them. He was rumored to be first. He had a great combine. Rumored to be first round, late second round. He went home
because he really couldn't miss that psychology class.
He was completely focused on working on his degree and his double major, no doubt. But that's where we're at. And so is this now? Because I'm saying 10, solid 10 guys that could have been in the first round that did not come into the draft when in normal times they would have absolutely been in that draft. Now, does this start to accumulate with the NCAA now saying, well, we might give you 5 years. You might get to stick around till your AARP card comes, you know? So who knows? Who knows? And so I think this is going to impact the NBA and will then turn what happens when the NBA
turns to Europe.
They go to Europe, Pete. You're one step ahead of me. They're going to turn and become more international.
Yep.
Yeah, you've seen it already.
And now you'll see our players go to Europe first and then come to the NBA.
It's already occurring. It's already occurring. A lot of our really good players will be heading to Europe. One of the the back end of that NBA draft, even the guys who did get drafted, you'll have to give you a name. Jameer Watkins got drafted by the Wizards late in the second round. Watch and see if he makes the roster. See if he gets in there. You know, because there's other guys that we could go through to our back. Remember I told you I love Tristan Vucevic? He had a great combine, lefty, international player. I saw him over there. I liked him. He was on the Wizards all year and in and out, in and out. You know, they have the two-way contracts now, so you can bring them in, you can bring them out. You can send them to the G League affiliate for a little while. So they have options. But I think they're really, in terms of bringing in your star quality, in terms of the NBA, attracting the best of the best, I think right now they're up against the NIL a little bit. I think they're up against it. Now, Pete, this is what we can say to our listeners, though, because your question prompts another. We have to do a show where we follow the money.
Well, that's my question. It's like everybody's hiding stuff, but how do state schools that are subject to government regulations, how do they do the NIL? Like, how do they report that? If you're subject to government purchasing rules and regulations,
you can find my salary online.
Your salary, but how to do the NIL stuff?
Right. No, I mean, you can find every single person who works at Westfield State's salary online.
You can find my salary online too.
Yeah. If you work for the state, you're open to open disclosure. That's a great question, Pete.
How do they run the NIL in a state school like Kansas?
Because the payments now are coming directly from the school.
Right.
The payments now are coming directly from the school. The revenue tier is coming directly from your television contract money. Or whatever other source of money you might have on campus. So it's going to be
ready for the next can of worms?
I am. But that's going to be, that's a great question. But what I will say is it's going to take a lot of time to research that, a lot of time to find that out. But I'm going to start working on it now.
I'm sure there's some auditors out there that would love to.
I think it's that's a great show. That's a great show because here's a great reason why. Because there is significant misinformation in the world today. With all of the open media that we have, there's significant misinformation that's out there. So how would you really find out, A? And B, I'll tell you why, because I'm on the phone with a friend of mine. I'm going to leave him nameless. He was an associate head coach at a Power 4 school. Okay? And I say, did you really pay all that money for this guy? And he goes, we paid a lot, but it's nowhere near what anybody's saying because that would have cleaned out our entire NIL budget. So there's somebody who knows on the ground. And the rumors, and I said, well, my next question was the why. Why would somebody say they were getting more money, especially if you're talking about now, maybe you're at a state school? Is the IRS in on any of this?
No.
This is income. Millions in dollars of income is the IRS involved in this. And so once you do say, okay, now you got to have W-2s or W-9s or
1099s,
whatever
yeah.
you do, then the information will become disclosable and they'll have to find out. I don't know that you'll ever get, I don't know that there'll ever be a way of doing it. Like they say they got to run these deals through Deloitte, right? They got to run all the Plan B stuff through Deloitte. You got your revenue stream, you're paying this guy one thing, but we got a great quarterback. We want to give him $6 million more, and we're giving him the $6 million more out of the Plan B, Lane 2 NIL budget. And so now Deloitte comes in and goes, well, what's he doing for the $6 million?
Yeah, what's the trade-off for the...
And so you sit there and say, and so there has to be this kind of, what it's going to lead to is just some kind of, back way of validating, why they paid him. We brought him on as a consultant. We brought him on, we wanted to know what he thought about Frito-Lays. He
was a lab experiment.
Right. We just wanted to hear, we know that we saw him eating a bag of chips and we wanted to know his expertise, so we're paying. I mean, those companies throw around a lot of crazy money for a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But I think when you have this tie-in, okay, you got a big booster and he's from that school. He attended the University of Podunk U. You know he was there. And now he's a billionaire. And he's dumping all this money into your guys. And you say, what are they doing for the money? I think that's going to become a little bit more difficult to justify. But I think at the same time, knowing coaches like I do, now that this door is open, there's going to be money coming in from all over the place that nobody knows about. Bags are going to show up. Bags are just going to show up. Duffel bags full of money are just going to show up to skirt this thing.
That smelled like an online betting company. Oh, did I say that?
Oof. Don't go there, Pete, because I got a segment of the show and nobody's going to like this one.
Third question. Ready for this one? Because we're going all out now. Does the G League disappear in favor of partnership with European League teams?
I have asked a couple of people in the know, on the show. I believe we asked Woj, do you think that this crushes the NIL crushed the G League? And a lot of people haven't really said that they think it will. And I think if the
NBA can offload that money that they spend on the G League to existing teams in Europe and maybe give them little bucks, and NBA can stash players over there, right? Does that make a better development league than the G League? European basketball leagues make a better development league.
I love to know where they get these guys from the G League too. Like some of these guys, I never heard of them before. They didn't go to college anywhere. They just show up out of the ethers. Some of these guys, it's a mystery to me. I agree with you though, and I've said this all along. I think is that the NIL is killing the G League.
Yeah,
the NIL is straight up killing the G League.
But so this is coming from an earlier conversation we just had today. If the players stay longer in college, right, and now they're going to go to Europe for a couple of years to develop and then come to the NBA, does it make more sense for NBA teams to say, well, let's get rid of the G League because we're spending all kinds of money on this, and our returns are not that great. We could put these guys in serious competition in Europe, playing in different European leagues. Develop partnerships like they do with farm clubs in the baseball realm, partnerships with all these teams over there, and then bring them back when they're ready to play in the NBA. Or if they never develop, they have a great career in the minor leagues.
Do you think the G League makes money?
No. I highly doubt it.
WNBA doesn't make money.
No, that's been proven.
They're both affiliated with the NBA.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If the NBA can offload that cost center,
I hear what you're saying,
to another entity that already has infrastructure, and they support them, it doesn't cost them as much. They get the same type of result, and they're not spending the money.
It's the same thing that happens when you're in a restaurant and you serve fish one night and it doesn't sell. And so that becomes fish chowder. on Thursday. You recycle it into something different. I think it will depend upon a couple of things. I think you're hitting on something that's real and genuine. I think it'll depend upon a few things. A, how much money are they losing, if they are in fact losing money?
Yep.
And what is the intrinsic value for the NBA to keep it? What does it do? I mean, if they're really, is the NBA happy about the NIL? Is the NBA unhappy about the NIL? I don't really know. I don't think they'd be too happy about it because it's.
But they're not saying, you're not hearing it.
You're not hearing it. But I don't, behind closed doors, in my mind, I don't think they'd be too happy about it. So then they got caught possibly with all of this investment that went into the G League. And now what do you do when you fold it up or fold it out or do whatever? You got all these investors in there, all these guys who plunk their dollars down. You're going to have millions of lawsuits. You're going to have, sometimes I think it's one of those things they just leave it in place like the old buildings, just it's vacant, but just leave it.
Yeah, I guess.
I really don't know.
Or do those
Pete.
teams,
it's a good question.
Or does the league disband, those teams join European leagues or something? Now you've accomplished two goals of the NBA. Moving their brand international, and now having those teams be elsewhere, and you can stash the players again like you were going to do.
But you have to get the European buy-in on that because right now they're limiting our players to 3 players you can't have a completely American roster go into European countries and play. They go in, they get 3 Americans. They get 2 Americans, depending on the country. And I've always said this, is the NBA, now that we're having an international flavor, and it's making the NBA great, I think, but now that we have it, is there any protection at all for our players, especially when our players are fighting the world? And
appear to be.
The only people that they were doing was fighting the United States, was keeping our guys at bay because our guys were so good back in the day. Now it's leveled out, it's margined out. Are they willing to drop those restrictions on the American players? Because I think that would be a big part of it. If you really wanted to now take, however many teams there are in the G League and start to off-ramp them into Europe, I think you're going to have some personnel issues there because you ain't going to be playing no European guys. A lot of these United States, the reason they kept our guys out of it. There's a reason. We could flood their market in a heartbeat. So I think they might resist that a little bit, and maybe that's why the NBA is going to get stuck with this dilapidated old building and just keep it rather than blow it up. 3 good ones, though, Pete. 3 good ones. Okay, we got a little bit of action happening here. I'm going to skate you through a bunch of different things here while we close out. Great interview with Will. Great interview with Dr. Jeff Gendrich as well from St. Bonaventure the week before. I think we're doing a good job getting you guests on the show. We're going to keep working it. We want more coaches. We want more head coaches from Division I on here, so we're going to keep working that. That's a difficult thing, because they're busy. All right, Bill Lang, coach at St. Joseph's University, has decided very, very recently to forego his year at St. Joseph's, and he is going to join the New York Knicks as an assistant coach in the NBA.
Wow.
People will shake their head at the timing of this. I encourage people, do not shake your head at the timing of this because it was timed absolutely up to the minute perfectly. What happens is Lang knew a long time ago, most likely, that he was going to join the Knicks staff. He must have some relationship with Mike Brown, the new coach. You're bringing in a new coach. They're going to have all new assistant coaches, all new positions filled. So I'm thinking they probably knew this a while back. Then you say, well, why does he delay it and why does he wait? He waits because his friend Steve Donahue is on the staff. Steve Donahue, has more head coaching experience than Lang. He's his assistant coach after getting fired at Penn. Now, they wait. The school has no choice but to give the job to Steve Donahue right now on an interim basis. If I was St. Joe's, I could be a little hot under the collar on this one because of the timing. You really stuck it to him on this one, and they stuck it to him so that they would absolutely have to hire his assistant coach. I think Steve Donahue is very capable, has more head coaching experience than Bill Lang does. So I think St. Joe's would have been fine to do it 3-4 months ago. But right now you're also putting Steve Donahue in a difficult place because he's been named interim, which usually means 1 year. And the players know that, recruits know that, NIL people who might be funding your program know that. You're gonna slip. You're gonna slip. I would have maybe, if I was them and thought about this more carefully, They might have just went with Donahue because he's a proven head coach. You know, he coached at Boston College, coached at Cornell, at Penn. He's been around, and he's a good coach. You know, the other question that I have, is this an NIL casualty of another small Catholic school?
No.
You know, did Jay Wright jump out at Villanova because he knew Villanova was going to have a hard time competing in this environment? And Villanova hasn't been the same since Jay Wright left. And so maybe Jay Wright might have been a bit of a prophet there, you know, foretold what was coming down the line. Again, St. Joseph's, it's a big university, Philadelphia, nice market there, but, you know, are they NIL, you know, ready? And I think you're going to see this become a little bit more prevalent in the A10 because the gaps in the A10 are growing of the who has it and who doesn't have it. You know, if you look at all of your power conferences up top, 18 schools up there, take it from Duke and Louisville all the way down to North Carolina State, Wake Forest, Notre Dame, whoever's in the bottom of the ACC. Take it top to bottom. And again, if we do our money show, this would be something to show. Look at the disparity between what Duke has to play with, what Louisville might have to play with, and what does the school down at the bottom have to play with as well. I don't think you're going to find a tremendous amount of disparity there because they should all be taking the same cut from the television contract. And so the rest of it's revenue and some of the other things that they can prove. But I don't think the gap would be as big as you might see in the Atlantic 10 right now, where you have, you know, VCU and some of the other teams up on the top of that league, and then go all the way to the bottom of the league in terms of, I'm only talking revenue now too. I'm only talking dollars. Go all the way to the bottom team and see who has the least amount of money, and then look at that disparity. And I would venture to say that percentage-wise, the disparities in the mid-major conferences are bigger than they are in the Power Four, because everybody in the Power Four got money. Everybody in the Power Four has money now. So what you do in lane 2, you saw at BYU, what they're doing in lane 2 is, you know, they're getting great players. They're getting the number one player in the country because of lane 2. They got the same money as everybody else in their conference. They split the same amount of dough right down the middle. Everybody gets a cut. But then you go to lane B, and that's where all those Power 4 schools are making their money. When you go to the commitment of the schools that are in some of those mid-major schools, St. Joseph's, LaSalle, St. Bonaventure, they're not able to make that same commitment that these other schools are, for simply they don't have the resource. But that's where I'd really like to also focus is on some of those mid-major leagues is Bill Lang jumping off the boat before the boat gets hit, you know, because they're looking at this saying we'll never have as much money as the top of the conference, and we will have significant disparities in that money. You're going to have a tough time overcoming that obstacle as a coach. You're going to have a tough time overcoming that obstacle as a program. And so this is what makes it really, really crazy for me is that you have all of these people within the same league with such disparate resources. And some of them are just loading up and going wild and getting great players, and the other ones are like, wow, you know, we just can't do that. And they're trying to survive, trying to stay in there. But this is going to cause a lot of conference realignment as well, Pete. Schools like maybe, you know, LaSalle and St. Joe's decide we need to step down in conference because we just can't compete at this level anymore. It's not sustainable. That's one to keep your eye on in the future. But he goes out the door, and that's a Broad Street bailout right there, man. They brought in Steve Donahue, but the timing was unbelievable. All right, let's jump, Pete. We got quadruple doubles. Only been 4 in the entire NBA history. And you'll be surprised to know that neither Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, all the great players in the game are not on this list. All right, this is going to cause an old throwback, folks, so grab your hat. Nate Thurmond, one of the great, great centers for the Warriors many, many years ago. I love Nate Thurmond. 22 points, 14 rebounds, 13 assists, and 12 blocks. He was a menace, defensive menace, and he was just a low block strength. The ball went inside to him all the time. He was a perennial all-star. Great, great player. You don't hear much about Nate Thurmond anymore. The Admiral, the Admiral, he took his Navy physical on his knees, the Admiral, so that when he was actually 7 foot, when he took his physical, it came out to 6'6", so he would wind up in the submarine. 34 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, 10 block shots for the Admiral while playing with the Spurs. Hakeem the Dream, 18 points, 16 rebounds, 10 assists, 11 blocks. This is unbelievable. Here's one that was a surprise to me because this guy's a guard. Alvin Robertson, 20 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists. He didn't get it with the blocks, but he got it with the steals, 10 steals. So when you put in a quadruple, a triple-double, any of that stuff, you have points. There's really 5 categories that's available to you in order to get in there. You have points, rebounds, you have assists, you have blocks, and you have steals. So you see Alvin Robertson getting in there beautifully with 10 steals. Unbelievable. NBA preseason opens October 2nd. Philadelphia 76ers versus the New York Knicks, 12 o'clock noon. Perfect finals GOAT list. Pete, you're going to love this because it's littered, and I mean littered, with Boston Celtics. Johnny Havlicek, Hondo, 8-0 in the finals, never lost a finals. Tommy Heinsohn, imagine having 8 rings. Tommy Heinsohn, 8-0. The broadcaster for the Celtics, Tommy Points, he's got some, 8-0. Woo. KC Jones, 1, 2, 3, Celtics right here, 8-0. 8-0 again. These were all teammates, I'm sure, too, for a long time. Tom, Satch, Sanders, the Celtics dominate the top of the GOAT list. Here we go with Jim Luskatoff, 7-0. Frank Ramsey, 7-0. Robert Horry, I liked Robert Horry as a player, 7-0. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, 6-0. That's when some people just say that separates Jordan from LeBron a great bit, because when you got in the finals with Jordan, you didn't lose. Okay. Here's our top 10 scorers from 24-25. As we enter into 25-26, I know people say that, 25-26. Remember 2000, Pete? When everybody was wondering if we were going to make it to 2001? Well, we made it, baby. We're going 25-26, but last year, the Joker for 61, De'Aaron Fox for 60, Giannis for 59, Joker for 56, Steph Curry, 56, Brunson from the Knicks, Jalen, 55, Jamal Murray, 55, SGA, 54, Anthony Edwards, 52, and SGA MVP and champion, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He went for an unbelievable year, 52 points for him as well. Okay, Pete, here's the top scorers in NBA history in their first 5 starts. And you're going to love some of these team names when I count them out. Anybody who's old school that's on here, and when I say old school, you got to be like 60 or over, to go back into the old days of the NBA and hear some of them. Anybody who was around for the ABA and hear some of those old names, man, it's just unbelievable. They bring back such memories in me when I hear the names, like I haven't thought about them in 25 years, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I remember that. All right, here we go. Wilt Chamberlain, here's one. He was with the Warriors, the Philadelphia Warriors. He had 182 points in his first 5 games, averaged 36.4. I put the average in there because Shaq is down at the bottom here, and the significance between the averages is different. A really, really favorite player of mine, Notre Dame, with the Buffalo Braves, Pete. The Buffalo Braves. Adrian Dantley had 153 points. Cam Thomas for the Nets. Really like this young man. I didn't know he had a burst out like that, though. 152. Unbelievable. Moses Malone, foe. He went right through the playoffs like a steamroller. 144. Again, the Buffalo Braves put Moses up. Walt Bellamy, 142. He played for the Chicago Packers. Unbelievable. Jeremy Lin, just retired. Lin Sanity for the Knicks, 136. Jared McCain. This guy would have been Rookie of the Year last year if he didn't get hurt. 133 points for the 76ers. I thought he might have a shot at Rookie of the Year because it was wide open, and he was killing it right up to the point of his injury. Dan Issel from the Denver Nuggets, also of ABA fame, great player. Kentucky Colonels, I want to say, 129. The Big O, Oscar Robertson, at 129, and he played for the Cincinnati Royals. And there's the big guy, the Big Diesel, Shaq, 129. He averaged 25.8. Wilt Chamberlain, 36.4. That's 10-point differential. All right, here's a top 5 for our fans in every single decade, Pete. This is one I have to go back and research to see how bad they flawed this one up. But I thought it was decent, so we're going to bring it. In the 60s, number 1 player, Russell. 2, Chamberlain. 3, Oscar Robertson. 4, Jerry West. 5, Elgin Baylor. They put Jerry Lucas in as the 6th for an honorable mention. What a squad. What an unbelievable squad. I watched all those guys play. They were fabulous. In the 70s, we go to the big guy, Kareem, Dr. J, Walt Frazier, Moses Malone, and Hondo Havlicek. Bob McAdoo was there in the honorable mention. I think they missed on Earl Monroe, man. I don't know if you can not put Earl Monroe in that group. 80s, we got Magic, Bird, Kareem, Jordan, and Isaiah. Look at Kareem, 70s and 80s. Unbelievable. You'll see Jordan in multiple decades as well. But give me that one again. Magic, Bird, Kareem, Jordan, Isaiah. It doesn't get any better. Dominique Wilkins in the 6th spot. The 90s, Michael Jordan, Hakeem, Karl Malone, Shaq, and Charles Barkley. David Robinson right there. Here we go to the 2000s, Pete. Duncan, Kobe, Shaq, LeBron, and Kevin Garnett. Dirk Nowitzki in 6th spot. I don't know about Dirk in a 6th spot there. 210. I think Dirk could be higher. 210. LeBron, Steph, Durant, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Russell Westbrook. Now you see why people are losing interest in the NBA. The bottom of that, look at the bottom over here. You got Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, and then you got Kawhi Leonard and James Harden. Russell Westbrook in the 6th spot. Now you can see it start to degrade, folks. Here we are in the 2020. You got to go with the Joker, Giannis, Jason Tatum, SGA, Luka, and they're keeping LeBron in there as the 6th spot. I could see it. I could see it. This is an AI. I'm not an AI fan, really. I think that's scary to me a little bit. But I'm not a big AI fan. But they put out a top 25 of all-time NBA players. And I want to, they say the thing that, when you're talking about AI, it's an accumulation of everything we know already.
You can crunch the numbers better than we can.
They just can get it to you faster. So when they put this together, I wanted to go in and see if I could beat AI and say, where did you miss? All right, so I got a couple of names I'm going to see that I think they missed on. Their 25 is this. Isaiah Thomas, 25. 24, Hondo Havlicek. 23, Dwayne Wade. 22, David Robinson. 21, Chuck Barkley. 20, Kevin Garnett. That's pretty solid. Got to give it to you. Pretty solid. All right, Dirk Nowitzki, 19. Julius Erving. Giannis Antetokounmpo. They have Antetokounmpo in front of Julius Erving. That's a rough one for me. Moses Malone at 16. Jerry West at 15. Now it's getting tight, Pete. Oscar Robertson. Kevin Durant. I think that's too high for Durant, personally. Steph Curry, 12. Hakeem Olajuwon, the Dream, at 11. Kobe at 10. Shaq at 9. Interesting that AI has Shaq over Kobe. That's crazy. Kobe Bryant was a much better basketball player than Shaquille O'Neal was. Hands down. No question about it. All right? Much harder work ethic. Much harder diligence. Shot free throws much better. Just, to me, I get Shaq, but Tim Duncan at 8. 7, Wilt Chamberlain. That's way, way too high for Chamberlain. He should be lower, much lower. 6, Larry Bird. 5, Magic Johnson. Interesting that they had Magic over Bird. I don't think I would pick it that way either, personally. I think Bird is right below MJ as number 2. That's going to make our Celtics fans happy, too. Bill Russell in the 4 spot. I like the fact they gave Russell his due. Kareem in the 3, LeBron in the 2, and all the way down to MJ. They didn't make a mistake there. LeBron and MJ 1 and 2. All right, I would take Larry Bird over LeBron any day of the week, twice on Sunday. That's just me. Now, here's where AI they FAFO'd, right? They went out and they tried it. Now we're going to tell them where they missed. You have to have Bernard King on this list, AI. You have to have Bernard King on this list. New York Knicks, Bernard King. Number 2, I didn't see Walt Frazier's name on this list. I think that's a mistake. I don't think Nikola Jokic's name is on this list. I didn't see the Joker here. You got to put him in the top 25. Karl Malone, not here. John Stockton, not here. Jason Kidd, not here. I don't know, AI. I don't know. Okay, here's something for you if you want to stack up Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron. All right? Jordan played in 1,072 total games. He had 173 40-point games. I'm going to say it again. 1,072 total games, 173 40-point games. That's more than 10% of his games. Incredible. Kobe, 1,346 total games. I found it interesting that Kobe played in more games than Michael Jordan did. But then when I thought about it, Michael Jordan went to North Carolina for 3 years and Kobe came straight into the league. So that might have accounted for a good bit of that. 135 40-point games, right up on the 10% line. LeBron, 1,854 total games. That's longevity, folks, for sure. 79 40-point games. Okay. Now you can heave at will, Pete. Heave at will. All right? Means the buzzer beaters that you see at the end of the quarter, at the end of the second quarter, the third quarter, any buzzer beaters that, players don't like taking them because they lower your percentages. And when the player has to go to arbitration, he can't tell the judge that, I'm below 50% because I took 72 heaves. So now the NBA will no longer count the heaves at the end in the statistical formulas for the players. I'm assuming they will keep them in the total count, but I don't know how you're going to start to reconcile things because now you got all these shots out there. Guess what, David Stern and all you other guys, that Silver, Hi-O Silver, all you commissioners that never played a game of basketball in your life, guess what? You're going to have a bunch of stuff that don't belong to nobody. All right, let's keep moving. So buzzers, heave at will. All right? I would have been okay if the players just stopped and said, okay, we're going to do it. Pete, I'm on the 2-minute mark here, I believe.
Yep.
All right. Josh Giddey, 4-year, $100 million. He's giddy, all right. He's sitting at home counting those dollars. He's giddy. Josh Giddey, he re-signs with the Bulls. Thomas Sorber, the big man from Georgetown, first-round draft pick of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Guess what happened to him? He has a torn ACL, and guess how long he'll be out for, Pete?
Season.
The entire year. There was no room on the roster for Mr. Sorber. So I think OKC might draw themselves a little scrutiny here from the NBA. If the NBA was ever looking, you might want to take a look at why are all their first-round guys getting a year off and a redshirt year right now. Might be something to look into there. Things that make you go home. Early draft pick Dylan Harper had surgery to repair, I'm going to give it to you, a torn collateral ligament in his left thumb. Season start is a little bit in question for him right now.
He's going to be on the PUP list.
He's going to be, and then again, surgery, the thumb, in a basketball environment, they're dunking, they're doing all this crazy stuff. All right, Pete. We wish Mr. Harper nothing but the best. Hope he recovers and comes back strong. Has a great rookie season. But here's the end of the show, folks. I wanted to save it for the end. You're dripping on this, and this is the way the media has decided to do it. It's one of the reasons I hope you come to In the Zone, because what they don't want you to know, they're not going to report. All right? Either they think you can't handle the truth, or they think you're not up for the truth, or they don't think you're worth the truth. Here we think you're worth it. All right? But here's the drip. Guys are gambling on their own games in the NCAA. They just got them. I'm going to leave their names out of it because they're done now. They're going to be out of NCAA for a while. No need to further trample on this thing for them. I'm going to leave their names out of it, but it's Fresno State. Games happen. They were betting on their own situations, trying to make a little money on the side. I think, you're going to have a lot of this. That's why I'm calling it drip, because that's how they're letting it out.
Yep.
Folks, we know you've been good all summer. We know you're ready to explode. November 3rd opens up the college basketball season for us, and I know you're going to be pumped up about that. The one thing you're not going to be pumped up about is the cannolis. You're not going to be pumped up about the cupcakes, because I had to look all the way through the schedule to find Villanova against BYU. All right? You got St. John's opening up against Quinnipiac. That'll be an interesting game for me. But also, UConn will take on New Haven as New Haven steps in to Division I for the first time. They've decided to take on the two-time national champion UConn Huskies for a payday. They're going to lose by 80 points. Pete.
Somebody give him some Frank Peppies on the way out the door.
It's a local game, too. It's not going to cost them anything. They'll be able to bank all that money. Maybe they'll start an NBA. Again, I want to give another shout-out. Brady LePage, unbelievable during our interview. Will Dawkins, unbelievable. Really had a great time. Folks, we'll see you next week in the Zone.